Hakadosh, Boker Tov. Good morning. I wanted to share with you an incredible shiur, which has a very interesting topic, which is called Halitehu LaRasha V'Yamot, which means sometimes we're going to let the Rasha, we're even going to pour it down his throat and that he should die, but that we're not going to help him. So now, what does this mean exactly? There's a lot of questions. For example, I'll give you one of the questions that I was asked a few years ago, and it was actually brought down as a psak, whether it's in Halacha and Yosef and other places. Let's say you have a boyfriend, girlfriend. They're a couple. They're going out and they're living together before marriage. So if right now you are, let's say, whether it's the rabbi or a good friend, will you now come and tell the girl, listen, you know what? Why don't you go to the mikveh? Because if you go to the mikveh, at least that way there's not going to be the doraitas and the karets and the this. You understand? Like, you make it lighter for them, right? Or do we say, no, we don't do such a thing? So these type of topics we're going to be speaking about today. So today we have Aleph. According to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, it says over here, there's no necessity to come and put different signs on a Kerem Bivai Orla. It's going to be Orla. Remember, Orla is in the first 3 years. Kerem Bivai is the 4th year of a tree. You're not allowed to benefit from the tree. To warn off the people that are stealing. Meaning people are coming, they're stealing fruits. You don't have to put a siman that this is Orla, right? Or Kerem Bivai. Nidin Aliteu Lavashav. If he's already going to steal, let him steal and let him die. Let him do the Averah. Let him do an Averah. Well, you have to save him from doing an Averah as well. So we have to understand, what is this? Why is there no chiyuv of stopping a person doing an Averah? Okay. There's the famous joke that they always say that in Lakewood, there was always somebody that used to come and used to take the milk from the fridge, right? So there was like a public fridge, and somebody bought milk, and always used to use coffee and cereal, and there was somebody always used to come and drink it. So what did he do, right? He wrote down, gezer, nothing, never helped, right? You could say it's stealing, but it never helped. What did he do? He put on a piece of paper, this is Chalav Stam. This is not Chalav Israel. He said, ever since he put on that paper, nobody ever touched it. What does that mean? Sometimes people, they could come and they could steal. They could come and they could kill. They could do whatever they want. But all of a sudden, on certain concepts, all of a sudden, no, they're not. Like, for example, during the time of the Bet HaMikdash. During the time of the Bet HaMikdash, they were more machmir on tum'ah v'tahara more than killing. Because there was a story of a guy that came, a Kohen, and killed another Kohen with a knife. And what happened is that the father of the one that was killed said, quickly take him out, right, before he's going to be mitamed azara. Which means that you see that even killing was no big deal, right, in comparison to tum'ah v'tahara. Because certain people, they have a limit, right? This yes, this no, this yes, so things like that. Okay, bet. According to Shitat Rabbi Yosef, somebody that's going to give tevuah for a pundakit, he's going to give tevuah to somebody to watch over it, like a collateral. Eno me'aser mikodem. He doesn't take off the maaser beforehand. He and anu achrayim, because we are not in charge of the tricksters, right? What does that mean? If they're going to come, they're going to start eating part of it. You didn't take off the maaser, so you should write it down or something. You should no. We didn't even tell them. Why? There's no problem. If they're going to do it, we still have to understand, though, that this Gimel is Aliteu l'Rashav Yamut a mitzvah, or is it a heter? Meaning, is it a mitzvah that we just leave it the way that it is and they're going to transgress the Yisur? Or we have a heter that we don't have to touch it in order, we don't have to start doing different things, and whatever happens, happens. Why isn't it a chobah on every single person? Because of Erevim. If every Jew is a guarantor for another Jew, so therefore, just like I have a mitzvah that you should do kiddush on Shabbat, and I could do for you kiddush and do mitzvot, so do the same thing to make sure you do mitzvot, right? Or also, why is there no obligation from a frusha nisura to separate someone from doing nisura b'mezid? Then we're going to speak about the sandwich, which is mub'al. What does that mean? Is it permitted to put poison in a sandwich, which is in your possession, in order that if the ganav is going to eat it, he's going to come and he's going to die? Meaning you're putting a trap. By the way, they did that nowadays. There was somebody that he did like a whole trap in his house that somebody broke in. And what happened was that all of a sudden it shot them and it was automatic. And at the end, they actually did put the person in jail, the owner of the house, but only because they said that if it would have been a firefighter that would have broke in, like in order to stop a fire, so then, Keilu, it would have been dangerous, so therefore Keilu is Chayab. But really, technically speaking, mitzad halacha, why? At the end of the day, right? Are you permitted to put this, poison, right, in the sandwich? That's the question, right? Next, התקנת חבלי כביסה רפואיים כדי לגרום לגנב שינסה לטפס לדירה בעזרתם ליפול. Imagine right now, that they're using the cables that they usually hang up the clothing. They use that in order to get into the house. So what do? You put a trick on them. You put very loose and very weak cables. So therefore, when the thief is going to come on, you're doing Home Alone, yeah? He comes on it, boom, it breaks and he falls. And you understand? Are you allowed to do that? And then he'll die. Whatever it is. He thinks that he's got a lot of support, and all of a sudden, boom, he just continues going down. Right? Number 7, Nahag. You got a guy that's driving on Shabbat. He asks you, he wants to go somewhere. Are you allowed to tell him? Are you permitted to answer him? Or can you tell him the other way around? And if you're not allowed to let him go the opposite, can you say the other way? You take him, send him the other direction. Okay? Chet, number 8. When you're going to close the streets on Shabbat, is there any sort of lipnei there or not? Or do you say like, why? Because of that, now it's coming out that he has to actually go much further away. He has to start doing a whole detour in order to go around. So what's halacha? Number 9. When you have a tzudat kashrut on a hotel, and they know that they're not allowed to put meat and milk, right? But they say that some of them are going to have with milk cold, right? Are you allowed to do that? Right? Number 10, right? Is there an obligation, right? In order, do we say that since the tzibur of the Eretz Yisrael, for example, they don't keep Torah mitzvot, they don't want it, so therefore we just say haliteu l'Shalom, or we have to try as much as possible to put all our laws in the land of Israel, even though you have people that are against it. But why? In order that this is supposed to be the law, and then so these are all the different questions which are coming up. Okay, so let's start. Okay, in the Torah, it says, what does that mean? You have to rebuke a person. However, though, in the Mishnah, in the Sechem Maaser Sheni, which is right over here, it says, Kerem Rabbi, מציינים אותו בקוזזות אדמה, ושל עולה בחרסית, של קברות בסיד, וממחה ושופך. So according to the Tanakama, what are you supposed to do? If you have a Kerem Rabbi that you're not allowed to eat from it yet, they have to put a sign on it. How? Kuzot adama, you put something of earth on it. If it's going to be a vola, which is the first 3 years of fruit, you're not allowed to benefit from it. Charsit, you put a pottery on top of it. Kvarot, it's going to be a kever, right? A tombstone. So you put lime. Okay? However, though, Rabbi says, one of these works in Shmit, only during Shemitah. Okay? Why? Because during Shemitah, they're allowed to come into your fields and they're allowed to collect. But now the Tznuim, they come and they say, right? They know, right? That what you're going to do, you're going to put money on the side. So just in case you do touch that, it's going to be mechulal, it's going to be deconsecrated and another money. Now remember, this is only during Shemitah that everybody's allowed to go into your field. But on the other years, you don't need to do that. Now the Gemara Baba Kama comes over here. This is the Gemara Baba Kama, and it says, what is the reason why? Not Shavit, you don't need to. Why? What does that mean? Like Rashi here says, what does that mean? The Rambam actually says in Pirush HaMishnayot as well, right? He says, we didn't make a takana for a gazlan, right? That's what he says here. We don't make a takana for a gazlan, why? Because the avon gazlanut, right, is actually even much more, which means that it's much stronger, the sin of stealing, than the sin that he's eating, Keren Revai or Ola or any other things. So because of that, we don't make a takana for gazlanim. We're not going to make a takana, these guys going to steal, so therefore let's try to make it easier for him. Or try to make it that, he's not going to be over another Yisur. The Me'iri actually breaks down, right? This is the Me'iri, Beta Bechira Me'iri. He comes and he says, En metaknim le'ovrei Averah. You see it over here? En metaknim le'ovrei Averah. אלא אם ייגעו, מוטב שישתרשרו בחטא יפלו דבר האסור. But rather, we don't make any takanot for people that do averot. But rather, if they touch it and they do it, fine, let them. What's the problem? Right? They're in the sin. They're going to eat it. They're eating something which is a food. We say, so you see from here, right? This is all right brought down in the different opinions over here, where it's going to be again one time. So we have the Mishnah, we have the Mishnah, the Rambam, and we don't make it takana for Gazanim. The Gemara says also that's the reasoning on the Taylor Shalom and the Me'id. The Chavot Ya'i on page 3, he comes and he's going to ask the following question, right? Why is it that Rashban, he permitted, right, he's going to permit that you don't have to come and put which is the Kenem right. 1 second, you have to separate Averah from Yisur Shogeg and from Mezid. And you could do it so easily. So why Be'emet, right? Do you do that? Why don't they do that? Meaning that doesn't make sense. Why Be'emet don't we have an obligation, right, to help them out? Yeah? So he says, so he comes and he says, he asks it over here. He says, why is it that we're not going to be mafid to actually save him? Right? Also, it's permitted, it's mashma, it's permitted to come and actually even give it to him in your hands. But why on every single Jew, we should stop them from doing an Averah? And therefore, there's an obligation. So here he says in the bottom, somebody that's going to give a cure for my sickness, he's going to be called a Rofeh Uman. He's going to be called a professional doctor. That's what he's going to be called, which means he doesn't understand what's going on exactly. Right? Why in such svara? Right? He's putting a stumbling block, or even if it's not a stumbling block, by the kinu that why is it that a person is not obligated to save somebody else from doing an issur? So Rav Yitzchak Elchanan Spector in She'elot U'Tshuvot and Yitzchak, he's the rabbi of Kovna. Okay, he comes and he says, why be'emet are we not obligated to save them because of arevut? If Kol Yisrael are arevim zelazeh, that's what he says here. Right? He says, at the end of the day, you don't want people to do isurim. So you try to minimize isurim. So why don't we do that? So he says, why? Because we could actually say that the chiyuv to separate from isurim is because of kol yisrael arevim zelazeh. And that's hatzalat atzmo shel so that means you should save yourself and you don't want to get punished. But we don't know the reason behind it. So he says, right? So he says, well, we're not obligated to come, and people are traveling through fields and they come and they start eating from the fruits of the fields. What's going on? So he wants to just understand what be'emet is the reason. Why be'emet not every single Jew is obligated because of what? Because of parevut. Which means just like I could come and I'm going to help you to do kiddush. So therefore, even though I did kiddush, I can say kiddush for you in order to be because I'm your arev, I'm your guarantor that I want you to do Torah mitzvot. Same thing, vice versa. The opposite way also as well, the inverse. Okay, fine. So now we go back to page 2. In page 2, there's a Mishnah in Demai, Masechet Demai. The Mishnah there in Masechet Demai, there's a machloket in the Mishnah. What about a mitareach? Hanotel pundakit. So it's over here like this, right? We're talking about there somebody that's going into a pundak, into a hotel, and he's putting into the owner of the pundak. They used to give them like a security. They were like the bank, so we used to give them our property or whatever it is that they give them. So according to Shitat Hanakam, right, he has to separate the trumasrot and truma from his teruah before giving it to them, just in case he switches it, and then other people will eat it. Rabbi Yosef argues. And he says, no, they're not obligated to. Why? That's what it says here. Hanotel lepundakit מסר את מה שהוא נותן לה, ואת שהוא נוטל ממנה, שתשדל לך לו. אמר רבי יוסף, no, we're not אחראים on the רמאים. We're not obligated not to make things for tricksters, right? So he comes over here. So according to everybody, when you get it back, you do have to take off the maaser again. The question is, when you give it, so the Yerushalmi, right? That's Yerushalmi comes, which is over here, Yerushalmi of the mind, and it comes and explains, right? And he says this. So the Yerushalmi says, "Nechleku bedin aliteu lerashav yamut." It says here, "Amar Rabbi Yosef, en anu achrayin leramayim." Right? So he says, Rabbi Yosef Rashbag, amru davar echad. Just like Rabbi Yosef Amar, en anu achrayin leramayim, ken Rashbag Amar, en anu achrayin leramayim. Stam Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Rashbag. So he comes and he says, which means that that's what they're arguing. Right? Rabbi Yosef holds like Rashbag that there's no reason to save the Rashayim. And the Tanakama argues. So therefore, that's what we have, right? This machloket between them. However, though, Tosot Yom Tov comes, which is over here. Remember the Tosot Yom Tov, he explains the Mishnayot. Yerushalmi is the Talmud Yerushalmi in the Gemara. And the Tosfot Yom Tov is explaining the Gemara and the Mishnah. The Tosfot Yom Tov comes and he says, right, that we don't have to say that. Really, Be'emet, Tanakama does hold, right, of Aliteu L'Rashav Yamot. Okay? So therefore he says, no, it's not like that. But rather there's another one. So you saw this from the Shitat Rambam, the Paskins and Kerem Rivai like Rashbal, right? And we say Aliteu L'Rashav Yamot. But to do the Yichom Ma'aseh, he Paskins the Tanakama, to do it if you're giving it to the hotel. So the Rambam, it's like a stira. The Rambam in one place is telling you that you don't have to put the sign, and then another place is telling you that we're giving it to put it. You don't have to put it. You don't have to take off the mat 2 months beforehand. So obviously, so he's saying that you don't have to say that is machloket between them. Okay, so that's what it says here. The Katav Rabbi Yosef holds that the ligzol, that's what the kavanah is, and that's a lash, which means that that's a machloket between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbanan, right? To do with that, are they doing it for the best or not? But if you know that they have kavanah to steal, we're not achrayim even according to the rabbis. And this is what it means to say. So then he wants to come and he say, that he's saying that we're not achrayim on the tricksters, because you find that the Rashbag actually says, is brought down in the Gemara, and that's also the Psak in the Rambam. But the Yerushalmi said that they both said the exact same thing. So therefore it was for a different reason. Okay? So therefore they also said in the Yerushalmi that Rashbag, he's going to actually be maskim to the Tanakama to do the Maaseh. Why? Because usually there's a difference between the Maaseh and the stealing. When a rabbi comes and they give you something, right, that's a chaver. Chaver was people that would tell me they're chachamim. When they come and they give you food, it's like automatic. They already took off Trumot Masot. Why? Because it doesn't make sense that there's going to be something in your hand which is not kosher. And as long as you didn't take off the Trumot Masot, it's not kosher. It's called untied. So because of that, explains that to do with the Trumot Masot, if you give it to them, you have to take off the Trumot Masot beforehand. You have to do it. And the Chazon Ish actually explains. Okay, that's over here. This is the Chazon Ish over here, down here at the bottom. He says the reasoning of Rashbag is that if you're going to take away the Yisur, it's not considered that you're being machshiloto, because you're just stopping the Yisur. And the person that's taking it without his manatov the baalim, we say Aliteu L'Rashav Yamot. He says that's only if he doesn't need anything with an action. Nevertheless, here, if you're giving it to the pundakai to watch over, so it's considered that you're giving it to them. So therefore, you're stopping them from doing gezel, and therefore it's an obligation, right, of taking off the tumot masot. So that's how the Chazon Ish explains the difference between the two cases. Okay. Now the Shach writes down. This is the Sifte Kohen. Sifte Kohen is on Shulchan Aruch. The Shach on Yud De'ah. He comes and he says like this: when you have a Yisrael mumar, eno chayav la'afrisho. Okay, but here we're talking about avodat elim. Here it says in the Ramah, right? Yeshua means something to say that it's a sulam kolam dvarim sheichim la'avodata. Haynu davka im en lahem acherim keitzebo. או שלא יוכלו לקנות במקום אחר, אבל אם יכולים לקנות במקום אחר, מותר למכור להם כל דבר, ויש מחמינים, צווים מחמינים, which means this. We know that there's halacha. You're not allowed to sell a Yisur to a Jew. Right? It says here in the Ramah, he's bringing down his face upon the Gemara, that if they can get it from another fashion, it's not an Yisur. So because, for example, can I sell a clothing, right, women's clothing, and it's not Tanua? But I'm going to depend that she's going to buy it, and let's say if it didn't have sleeves, she's going to put on a jacket, or she's going to put on a sweater, or things like that. Or can you sell a wig? If you sell a wig and it's too long, now you're going to say that, you know what, maybe she's going to cut it. So are you allowed to sell all those things or not? Because it's a lifnei iver, right? You're putting a stumbling block in front of people, right? Can you sell something when he's sued to a person? Can you rent out a house, right, to people which are mechalel Shabbat, knowing that they're going to be mechalel Shabbat in your house on Shabbat? You know, all these questions, by the way, are written down in Halacha. They bring these down. So we have to understand. So the Shach comes and he says, a Yisrael Mumar, which is basically a Jew which he does not keep things. That's what it says over here. Yisrael Mumar eno chayav la'afrisho. You're not obligated, right, to separate it. Which means he does whatever he wants and that's it. You just leave him do whatever he wants. So now the Nod of Yehuda, right, in the Dagul Meruvah, the Nod of Yehuda was in the Cheskel Landau of Prague, right, in Czechoslovakia. So here he comes and he asks the following question. He wrote, Nod of Yehuda was a shoot, Nod of Yehuda. and the Dugum Rabbah was written on the Shulchan Aruch. So on the Shulchan Aruch, he comes and he says, why then are you not obligated to separate them? Why are you not obligated to separate them? Yisrael Mumar, Afal Pishechata, Yisrael, a Jew that he sins, even though he's a sinner, he's still a Jew. So because of that, he wanted to say there's no obligation to separate him to be Lavor Elisur Mezid. Now, the Shuten Yitzchak that we just saw over here, this Shuten Yitzchak, right? He comes, the Rabbi of Kovna. He says, from the words of Rashban, Alitel Rashav Yamut. He comes and he says, according to this, now we understand why he says Alitel, because there's no obligation to separate him, the Over B'Mezid, only if it's going to be a Shogeg, are you obligated to save him. Meaning like this, if you have a Jew that maybe is going to be over in the Sur by accident, for him, you're obligated to save him, and therefore to make signs, to make those things, 100%. But if the person wants to do it purposely to do the Averah, you're not obligated to save him. You can leave him to do whatever he wants, and that's it. However, though he himself, or Yitzchak himself, Spectre himself said, 1 second, but because of a revut, there's no obligated to save him from an over Averah Isur when it's nistar, when it's hidden. Because a revut is only when it's revealed and not on something which is hidden. So therefore, right, you understood, which means that this, if a person is going to do an Averah publicly, you're obligated to save him. If he's doing it privately, you're not obligated to save him. Because what is Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh? Arevim Zeh means I'm a guarantor for you only on something that I know. If you're going to do something privately in your house, I'm going to know you. So I'm not obligated to. So according to this, he says, the owner of the vineyard, right, he doesn't know who's taking the fruits. So there's no din of arevut. There's no din of that I'm a guarantor for him that he shouldn't do an Averah. And therefore, I'm not obligated to save him from doing an Averah. So from there's no raya from Nashbag to the Dugum Rabbah. And now we can answer up to Shittat Rambam. Because the Rambam, he had a contradiction. He passed like Rashbag to do the Ken Rabbi, that he had to put a siman. That there you don't have to put a siman and certain Aliteol Rashav Yamot. There's no obligation that it's hidden. But to do the Pundakit, that you come and you give something to the hotel manager to watch over for you, there it's niglot, everyone sees it. So because of that, and everyone knows what's going on. So because of that, that's why he says, right, that we paskin that you do have to separate from it. So now it comes up beautiful. The concept of a revut, there's a difference between something which is hidden and something which is in front of your eyes. Okay? Now, the shita of Hagaon with Tzvi Pesach Frank in Hartzvi, which is this one, right? Hartzvi, that's Tzvi Pesach Frank, right? He was a rabbi of Yerushalayim. He comes and he says, we cannot learn from the Kerem Revai Halacha a general rule of separating from Isur. Because Kerem Revai, he says, even if you're going to write down that it is an Isur of Revai, there's still an Isur of Gezer. So it comes out that the fact that you're coming and you're writing down that it's Kerem Revai, you're still not separating it from Isur, the opposite. You're adding in now an Ichshur. So therefore, because of that, he says, it's like this. In general, you should try to minimize Isurim, right? That's what you should try to do. You should try to minimize Isurim. Here, it's a special deen, and that's what he says over here. He says, if right now you're going to come, you're going to tell them that it's Kerem Revai, so now it's going to become Isur Gezer. So it comes out the fact that you actually put down that it's Kerem Revai, you're not actually saving him from Isur. The opposite. Now you're giving him a Mishur, right? So therefore he says, but in general, it is important that you should be Mima'et Isurim. That's what he actually comes and he actually says. Okay, so now let's go back to the case that we mentioned. Putting poison in a sandwich in order that all of a sudden, right, the thief will come, right, and he's going to take a good bite and bon appetit, right? But it's going to be very powerful, very, very, very powerful. Okay, so that's what it says over here. Is it permitted to put sukariot reilot, poisonous candies, right, on the entrance, right, of the, for example, the entrance by the safe, in order that if the poretz, he's going to come and he's going to want them, he's going to eat. Imagine a person comes, they open up the safe, they see these good candies. He comes, opens it up, eats it, yeah, and then he dies. Or is the person allowed to do that, or are they not allowed to do that? So Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein, right, these are these incredible questions that that they ask him. So there was a Maaseh Shaya. It was the story. What was the story? Right? There was a student. Yeah, Gufa Deuvda. Right? It says over here like this. There was one of the Bet Sefer, there was one of the students in Madain. Right? He says over here, one of the students in a we're talking about over there, that what happened is that they went and they used to steal every single day. They used to steal his how do you call this? A sandwich. Yeah, you see it over here, over here. Gufa Deuvda, this was the case, right? See, one of these guys that they were learning, right? Whether it's going to be in science, in a sort of beat, right? He did chemical meule, but friendly. He was the miskena kita. He was the it was the misken in the class. So what happened? So he used to actually come, and he used to actually come from the misken, the karich. He used to steal the sandwich that he always used to prepare for himself, right? So nobody would actually come and help this boy because he was a misken. So the guy was going crazy. He didn't know what to do. So one of the days, right in the darza, after, all of a sudden, one of them, he starts coughing and throwing up, and all of a sudden, everyone, what's going on? The misken comes, gets up, and he tells them, he says, don't worry about it. Now we know who the ganav is. We know who's the thief. Why? Right? I went and I put a chemical poison inside, and I put it inside of my sandwich. Yeah? So therefore, he went and ate it. Right? So what happened was, he took out something inside of his bag. He gave it to him, right? And all of a sudden they came, and what happened is that they saved the guy, right? He took out another type of a potion, they took it away, perfect. They call it Tala, everyone, they come, okay. So now, from then on, right? So he already all of a sudden, wow, this guy's not anymore a Talmid Misken. This guy's now a Gibor Tichon. This guy is now not a Misken anymore. And it's like, wow, what a genius plan this guy had. Yeah? So one of them, he was a Jew. So what happened was, right? And now he's actually the Rosh Machlaka in one of the Bate Cholim units, he said. So he asked the Zilberstein. He went and he said, let's say, would it be permitted for the Jew to do that? And then it would actually cause the death of the Ganav. So Zilberstein went and he said, Lo rak mutar. Not only is it mutar, it's even a mitzvah to do such a thing. Because aliteu larasha v'yamot. And now we're going to bring all these letters in order to understand this. You understand? So this is what so here you have different letters. First letter, a letter of, it says over here, it's a letter of Rav Sinai Meir Frankel. It says in Ma'arech Kotor Torah Vizol Zilberstein Shlita Ramat Elchanan Benebrach Achred Rishat Shalom B'Atov B'Chvod B'Raui, right? Uchraui. He says Be'et Shishtatafti B'Simchat Bar Mitzvah Shenechto B'Tveria. When I was in the Simcha of the Bar Mitzvah of his grandson Tiberias, Nigash Alai B'Chol Yeshivat Or Yehuda V'Siper and told me that in Yeshiva they tell him Halacha that it's mutar la'achim malkodet mavet laganav. You're allowed to actually prepare a trap, a death trap for a thief. So since it sounded very weird, right? I went to the Bachur and I told them, the Chavot asked him, and the Bachur went to him, and he told me that you said yes. And he said, not only that it's mutar, it's a mitzvah. So, you started asking one thing, he even brought down the story of the student in Atzot Brit, right? And he said that it's actually correct, and it's a mitzvah. So after I heard these words, I wanted to ask, Vodo myself, I wanted to ask you, number one, the concept of Aliteu Larasha V'Yamot is in the Mishnah Maaseh Sheni. Just like brought down in Yerushalmi, the words of Rashbag, it's also brought down in the Bavli, but there it's talking about it's not an obligation, right? It's not an obligation on a person to stop a Rasha to do an Isur, right? That there's an Isur, there's no obligation. But to cause a punishment in the body and Kavachomer to kill him, where did we see such a thing? Meaning he's asking against Rav Zilberstein. Our Mekor, which means a source, right, of this, it's from the Mishnayot. Those Mishnayot is basically just to stop us, right, from doing these things, but not anything else. That's actually caused death. Where do we see such a thing? For sure, it should be asur. And even if we're going to say gadol machtiyod, you told me go that it's more worse to kill someone than to cause them to sin. There's also talking about dinei shamayim, not dinei adam, right? So here we're talking about mamash retzach. It's not much. Like what's going on here? Number two, also, where do we find din mavet leganav? A person that steals, he gets the death penalty. Where do we ever see such a thing? And even if we're talking about grama, right, that it wasn't that he killed him, he caused it. He caused the death. It's very mefusam, the words of the Rambam, right, where he's talking about shtichut damim even on grama, right? So then in number three, so just can you please explain it to me, right? And it's very interesting. I want to know what's maskana bemet to understand. So this is from Rav Frankel. So now this is the letter from Rav Zilberstein. Okay, Rav Zilberstein comes and he says, Rav Frankel, look at your beautiful letter, it came to me, and then you're talking about the ganav that he comes and he eats it. So he comes and he says, you're right? That he says to do the ganavim, the bechal tefillah, he doesn't agree with us. So he says like this. He says, it's not the Rambam. So he says, "V'amina b'matuncha, harei divrei Rambam shekvot Torah mitkaven elav b'hilchot rotzeach." He says, look, the Rambam is in hilchot rotzeach, which is the hilchot of murder. There it says, if somebody's going to pay someone, right, to kill their friend, or he sends his own servants to kill a person, right, or right that he went and he tied him up and he put him in front of a lion, and the lion came in and ate him up. In all these cases, it's like shofech damim. And it's like that you killed him and you're chayav mita b'dei shamayim. Now, this the Rambam says the ofen shehu zeh orei be'emtzaut, that you're the one that's killing, but through a messenger, whether it's a shaliach, a messenger, or through the wild animal, or through goyim. But if somebody's putting something in his own knapsack or in his own back, in his own lunchbox or his school bag or whatever you want to call it, right, satchel, whichever language, right, and he's putting there some amavet. Or he's putting, for example, an uga, a cake, right, that has right beside the kasefet in his house, right beside the safe in his house. Yeah? So he says, the entire action was done through the ganav. Sometimes you didn't do anything wrong. It was done through the ganav. Because he shouldn't have eaten it. Just like it says in Baba Kama. Right? Why? He says, if somebody's going to put poison in front of the behemah, the animal of his friend's animal, he's patur midinei adam. Why? He shouldn't have eaten it. And this Rambam doesn't bring it down. The opposite. If this was also grama, so the Rambam should have said you're not allowed to put any type of candies or whatever it is in his pocket, right? If they're made for ral, for mice or whatever it is, the veneno, the poison and things like that. So we're not going to do that because maybe somebody's going to steal it and he's going to eat it. So we also brought down Masechet Derech Rabbah Maaser Rabbi Yeshua she'tishkim etzlo adam ונתן לו אכילה ושתייה, ועלהו לגג לשכב, ונטל סולם מתחתיו. He took away the ladder. Because if he wanted to run away, he's going to fall and he's going to die. And that's exactly what happened. What did he do? He got up in the middle of the night, he took all the kelim, he put them in his talit, and then what happened? When he wanted to get down, right, he fell and he broke. He broke his thing. What happened? You right, look also the Merachuli. So what do you see from here? That means he basically set him up in a trap. That he was setting up the trap. That now the guy's going to run away with all the utensils and everything. What's going to happen? He's going to fall. That's it. So now that which he wrote down, also the entire concept of a even though Yasudosh Yamud Me'Averah Yado means that really Benet he should die from the Averah in his hands. That's what it means. The Amot he should die from the Averah in his hands. But the Lashon Pshuta means that he's Bemet Chayevet Liot Emet. That it has to be what's the Pashut? You give it to me, I should kill him. And therefore, that's why the Chachamim should say this. But now it's not the time, right? As I'm going to sign Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein. Okay? So now they went and they asked it to Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Okay? And listen to this, Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Listen to this, incredible. Okay, this is the letter to Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And what happened is that now we're going to read this. We'll finish with this. We might have to make a second part. But it says like this. Any ra'ui le'ora'ah klal. Rav Chaim Kanievsky says, I'm not fitting for psak. I'm not fitting good. Aval. Lichora yesh makom ledivrei gisi shlita bat. There are there's a proof to the words of my brother-in-law Shlita, right? So he says as follows. So you see from here that how he's saying that even though he's not fitting for Oda'ah, he is agreeing in this entire concept that to his brother-in-law. And he's saying, Yesh makom le'bisi shlita. Now Rav Zilberstein is going to continue and he's going to explain, right, the entire halachot. Obviously, there's a lot more of what to continue, whether it's all the cases that we brought down, and Bli Neder, we're going to save it for next time to be a part number 2, Be'ezrat Hashem.